It's that time again, the time we say goodbye to a generation of consoles. Over the years, many have faded away into obscurity. Atari, Sega, Ouya, Steam machines. Sony and Microsoft are the only ones left standing, fighting for the eternal war of console supremacy.
Nintendo is doing very well with the Switch, but that was released in 2017, so it doesn't count. Also, we're gonna go ahead and ignore the Wii U because that doesn't fit into my narrative. Thank you.
For 7 years, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 in their many iterations have given us great memories. Memorable moments that many of us will cherish deep within our very hearts and will never forget. That is why a guy who prefers playing games on the PC and only owns one of these two consoles will take a look at the 8th generation of video game consoles to give you the clear, definitive answer on who won this generation's console war. After a very contested 7th generation war, Sony made the first move on the 20th of February 2013 with its See the Future event. They announced the PlayStation 4's architecture, showed off streaming features that nobody would ever use because even back then Twitch was already dominant force in streaming after they won against Own3D.
I've made a video on that, check that out by the way.
The new DualShock 4 controller got announced, which was significantly better than the DualShock 3, and what is retrospectively the saddest announcement, they were betting on developers to include at the time the 1-year-old PlayStation Vita as a second screen device. Obviously that never happened and the PS Vita was a huge flop, but honestly it's pretty sad when you see that 4 years later Nintendo took the concept, improved it and had huge success with it. Also they got Capcom to show off an impressive game demo titled Deep Down. So yeah, that never saw the light of day. Honestly, what is it with PlayStation and showing off tech demos that everybody would like to play but they never get made into games? Over 2 months after Sony had held their announcement event, Microsoft followed with what is now known as the TV event.
TV experience. TV and movies, TV. Xbox, watch TV. TV, watch TV. TV remote. TV experience. TV.
Instead of the Xbox One being a true game console, Microsoft pivoted into more of a home entertainment product with a big focus on TV and also fantasy sports integrations with EA games for some reason. They spent about like 25% of the announcement talking about an FPS that wasn't even exclusive to Xbox, but hey, you could customize your character in it, so great. They showed off the console, the controller, and also the Kinect bar, which would come with the console. After that came time for E3, more exactly June 10th. Both companies would hold events where they would reveal launch games, more features, and most importantly, pricing. Microsoft started off with the date, November 2013, the price, $4.99, the games, Dead Rising, Quantum Break, Rise Son of Rome, which looked amazing for the time, and announced the next Halo game, which would be Halo 5 Guardians. The presentation still had heavy focus on home entertainment, which fans really didn't like. Sony followed a couple of hours later. The date, November 2013 as well, the price, $3.99, the games, Killzone Shadowfall, Knack, and Drive Club. They also announced future exclusives like Infamous Second Son and The Order 1866. The launch winner was clear. Sony's $100 price difference and better looking exclusive launch lineup were just better. But let's be real here, since hindsight is 2020, this was a pretty weak launch lineup for both Sony and Microsoft, especially when you consider what the 9th generation launch titles are now. And so came November. The PS4 released on November 15th in North America and on November 29th in Europe. What about Japan? What about other regions, you ask? Well, Japan's dominated by Sony and Australia is a
goddamn hellhole
that I just don't want to talk about, okay? Microsoft went with a global release and November 22nd was the date. They were both kind of mediocre. Killzone was Sony's only real AAA launch title and that was pretty average. On Team Green, Forza 5 was good, but both Killer Instinct and Dead Rising 3 were also average. Rise Son of Rome looked great graphically, but was nothing more than disappointing gameplay wise. So who was in the lead? Who was winning, or at least winning after launch? Well, Sony's launch titles kind of failed, but the console itself was good, and Microsoft's console was so far and away from what its fans wanted it to be, but they had better launch titles. Kinda. And if you haven't realized by now, I'm not including non-exclusive titles in this because they're available for both consoles and on PC, which is the superior platform. Put it this way, it wasn't going well for Xbox. Sales were half that of Sony, fans were upset with the One's lineup, and so Microsoft appointed Phil Spencer as head of Xbox in April of 2014. The position was vacated when former Hawks, is that, can you call that like a CEO? Hawks? Is that a thing? When former Hawks Don Maverick left for the position as CEO at mobile games company Zynga.
That surely went well.
The only promising title in Halo 5 was still a year away, and so meanwhile, over in the land of the rising dark blue PlayStation logo, the PS4 was doing exceptionally well. Infamous Second Son was good. The Order 1866, on the other hand though, Okay, so here's how I picture both companies before they launched their consoles and they knew their launch titles pretty well in advance. Over at Microsoft, they went something like,
"Yeah, that's a good lineup. I'm sure Forza will give them hours of car fun, while Rise Son of Rome trademark will be the next big franchise. That will make our fans happy for at least 1 to 2 years so we can focus on Halo 5, Guardians. In the meantime, we can pretend that third-party titles are our own exclusives so fans don't get upset."
And over at Sony, they went,
"Yoshida-san, our lineup isn't the best for launch. Any ideas on how much we should improve it after launch?"
Hi.
But on a more serious note, after Phil Spencer was appointed as head of Xbox, things were getting better, and in 2014, backwards compatibility for Xbox 360 was announced. In 2015, Gears of War 4 got announced, as well as Sea of Thieves and Fable Legends, with Fable Legends being cancelled. But that's not the point. Point was that all 3 of them were exclusives to Xbox.
At least the effort counts, okay?
They also announced the new Xbox Elite controller, which is still the best controller to this day. Also, Microsoft now shifted into realizing that they actually had a significant advantage to Sony in, you know, basically being the company who has 80% market share in operating systems with, you know, Windows. They started to make Xbox exclusives into Xbox and Windows 10 exclusives, which is great. This generation was also the first generation where both Team Blue and Team Green went for a true mid-generational refresh on their consoles. Microsoft started it at E3 2016 by unveiling the Xbox One S, a slimmer version of the original Xbox One. They also announced what was a long-rumored project nicknamed Scorpio, a high-end all-new version of the Xbox One. Sony, which wasn't at E3, also announced a slimmer version of the PS4 titled PS4 Slim. Sony's press conference was different because Sony already had their upgraded PS4 ready to present. It was named PS4 Pro and it was a fully upgraded 4K ready console which stayed at the same retail price as the original PS4, as well as having a list of free game updates that would make use of the better hardware within the console. The PS4 Pro released in November of 2016. Microsoft formally announced the new Xbox One X at E3 2017 and it was a beast. Problem only was, except obviously all the third-party titles that you could get on all platforms, there were no real AAA exclusive games to fully utilize the great hardware. Ever since the release of what I'd call the 8.5th generation of consoles, everything has been largely the same. Microsoft had the better console from a hardware side, while Sony had all the exclusives. In my opinion, ever since Phil Spencer was appointed head of Xbox, it was very clear that Microsoft conceded the battle for exclusives to Sony and instead focused on the hardware. Instead of trying to push out new rushed exclusives to somehow try and compete with Sony, they went and acquired a total of 8 new studios between 2014 and 2019. In 2020, Microsoft dropped an absolute bombshell with the acquisition of ZeniMax Media, the parent company of Bethesda. In one deal alone, they will get all the franchises like The Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Dishonored, and Wolfenstein. And all of them could potentially be future console exclusives for Xbox. All of a sudden, the battle for the 9th generation of consoles doesn't seem so one-sided anymore. Like, don't get me wrong, Sony has a really strong lineup of exclusives that they've built over years, but Microsoft just flat out buying one of the biggest game studios in the world surely is a game changer. If if we look at the sales numbers alone, PlayStation won. They doubled the Xbox One in sales alone. Even the 3-year later released Nintendo Switch has outsold the Xbox One. But as I've said earlier, Microsoft is fully preparing for the next generation, and it might have conceded this battle, but it is going all out for the next one. Until either Sony or Microsoft stop making game consoles, the war shall never be over. Or some shit like that.